Well, you're looking well, Gareth. So how are you feeling this week?
Well, I'm glad that I'm not ill. So obviously we've got the NHS strike on at the moment. I'm assuming that you've noticed we're on day 3. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling well, and I'm glad I'm feeling well because I would be slightly worried about going to A&E. But yeah, I mean, we spoke about the strikes a few weeks ago. I mean, personally, I'm still of the same position. I don't know why they think it's okay to strike. And I did notice this morning, Kemi Badenoch has said that Conservative government would ban doctors from striking. So I think I'm right in saying that soldiers, the police force, and the fire service are not allowed to go on strike. But she said she'd ban doctors from striking, but not nurses. I don't know what you think about that. If you think that is acceptable, should people be banned from striking?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I just feel like this strike's come on very quickly. Usually you hear in the news they're going back and forth, they're rejecting offers. I know they had an offer of about 5%, didn't they? But yeah, I mean, on the big scale of things, I think UK doctors are probably on the lower side, globally, in first world countries for getting paid. But on the flip side, I think their pension contributions are around 20% from the UK government. So I don't know if the UK government could literally halve the pension contributions, make sure that we're in line with the rest of the world on that, and maybe give them a 10% pay rise based on that. But yeah, it is a little bit strange, and I do wonder if it is a strike because I've recently found out that a lot of these doctors then work overtime to catch up the backlog of all the things that they fell behind on while they were striking. So I always thought a strike was um, you losing your money to make a point, just refusing to go into work and not wanting to work and then losing your money. I mean, that's what the miners did, didn't it? That's why a lot of miners were struggling back in the 80s or late 70s or whatever, because they didn't have an income, whereas these doctors seem to be able to do overtime. So
Yeah, well, I think that's part of what I think the bit is people are saying is a bit scandalous is that they're not actually suffering or losing out. The people who they took an oath to actually protect are suffering and losing out. And I mean, you're right on pay. Maybe they're not the best paid in the world. They do get nearly 24% paid into their pension scheme. I'm sure if you're a doctor, if you want to, you can easily retire at 55. And although they may start out at around 38,000 a year, I mean, they're earning a hell of a lot more than that within 6 or 7 years' time. And like you say, there's loads of overtime. They're asking this time for 29%, which is on top of the 22% that they've already had. I might have got that back to front. So basically, they're looking within a year to have increased their salary by over 50%. So I know they're arguing that it puts them back in line with where they were in 2008, but accounting for inflation, etc. But is anybody in line with where they were 2008? Our doctors to me, or these militant doctors from the BMA who are voting to strike, and I've heard people on the news representing the BMA who aren't even these resident doctors, what used to be called junior doctors. They're voting to strike. Why are they voting to strike if they're not even resident doctors? Why are they even involved in the decision? And they've had so many votes on strike action, but it just feels like a complete lefty militant action. And it's not right for patients. Doctors and the other people in the medical profession are working really hard to try and clear backlogs. We've still got loads of backlogs from COVID. Do they seriously think they're going to get a nearly 30% pay rise on top of what they've already had? It's just
well, they're
ridiculous.
not. Well, they're not, and like I say, they're working hard to clear backlogs, but then they're getting paid time and a half to do it in overtime. And why does a 25-year-old want their wages compensated back to 2008? Because I'm pretty sure that most of these junior doctors were probably school age in 2008. So why is there so many young people on TV screaming about we want our wages to reflect what they were in 2008? Most of them weren't even doctors in 2008. So I'm assuming when they got into the profession, they got into the profession knowing what the pay was at that point.
Yeah.
So for them to start demanding, well, we want it to go back to 2008 levels, just seems a bit nonsensical as well. I mean, most of them were probably getting pocket money at that time, so I'm not quite sure what a lot of these doctors are asking for. They're asking for a raise that reflects an amount of money that people were on before they even got into the profession. So it don't make much sense to me, to be fair.
Well, I think your point about what were they, when they entered the profession. I mean, this is what I can't quite get my head round. You enter a profession that uses predefined pay scales, so you know exactly what to expect in terms of pay. So, quite frankly, where do you get off a few years down the line or a year down the line? Actually saying, well, no, that's not good enough for us now. We want you to backdate it to nearly 20 years ago. Um, and they also have the year on year pay increase as well, which I think is over 5%. So, within the NHS, nurses, doctors, other workers, they get an automatic pay increase every single year. That's nothing to do with going up the pay scales. It's just a pay increase that they actually get. The other thing about the strikes is that most doctors didn't actually vote to strike. So the turnout was actually under half of the people who were eligible to vote actually voted. But because of the turnout of the vote, that's actually why they've ended up going on strike. So it's actually ridiculous. There's about a third of them have voted for strike action. So basically, they're bringing the NHS, parts of the NHS, to a complete standstill for 5 days. One third of doctors. I mean, personally, I think it's wrong. I do believe that people who work in essential services shouldn't be able to strike. Part of the deal that they've got is they get incredibly generous pensions. They do get paid overtime, and they do know before they start in the profession what the salary is going to be. If you go and work in the private sector, you're taking more of a risk around your salary because it's much more unpredictable, particularly if you work in a small business, what your actual pay progression is going to be. And it's more unusual, I would suggest, to have pay scales, particularly in smaller businesses. But people who work in the NHS, they know exactly what they're going to be earning. So,
Well, they haven't gone into it blind, have they? They've not
no,
going. They've not gone in going after a year. Gone. Well, I thought I was going to be earning more than this. Well, no, you didn't. You knew what you was
yeah.
going to earn, and then to ask for the type of money that people were getting before you even got into the industry just seems a bit strange, doesn't it? It doesn't make any sense. But a lot of things that happen in the public sector don't make sense. But a lot
Well,
of them seem to enjoy it as well. They seem so happy while they're striking as well. A lot of these people, it's very strange.
Well, I think there's a lot of militant lefties in the health service and in the BMA, like there are in every other part of society. To be honest, I mean, it does. You're thinking about doctors' pay. Okay, well, we're investing more and more into the NHS. It feels to me. So I think the number is 11.1%. Of our GDP is spent on the NHS. So, as I've said before, we run the risk of becoming an NHS with an economy attached to it. So we're pumping money in. Who's seeing the benefits? I mean, there's loads of fabulous things. I've had some fabulous treatment on the NHS. We often hear the NHS is on its knees. I mean, it's so melodramatic. There's parts of the NHS that are performing really, really badly for patients. And I speak to people all the time who are getting a terrible service. The classic being, I can't get a GP's appointment. We could spend a year debating what the reasons for those things are. And we'd probably have to get some specialist guests on to come and tell us from their side. But there's still so much waste in the NHS. They want money. I've heard the figure. It's only an extra £4 an hour bandied about. Where are we supposed to find the money from? Well, what about the old classic, the diversity, equity, and inclusion officers? So we're employing people like this. These are just HR functions that should be done by an HR manager. I mean, God knows how many HR managers and DEI managers we've actually got in the NHS. How many of those are actually needed? Um, the interesting case is, I don't know if you've heard about this Sandy Peggy case. So she's a nurse who's taken NHS 5 to court for discrimination. She was forced to share a changing room with one Dr. Beth, air quotes, Beth Upton. Beth Upton actually being a man. And Sandy went into a changing room and Dr. Upton was there and Sandy wanted to get changed and she didn't want to get changed in front of Dr. Upton, who then complained about her. So in that case, which has now gone to an employment tribunal because she's making the claim against them for sexual harassment, belief discrimination, and victimization, because she was actually disciplined and suspended after complaining that Upton was in the changing room. She said, "Why should I have to share a single sex space with a guy, somebody she believes to be male?" And also, she felt that she was being victimized because she believes that gender, sex, I don't know why everybody calls it gender, but they do. We'll call it gender for the purposes of this.
She
That
knows. She
that
doesn't believe. She knows.
yeah, she knows. She knows that biological sex is immutable. So she's taken them to court, but it's been quite there's been quite a lot of reporting on it this week because the case is now live. And there's a woman who's given evidence called Isla Bumba, who is a senior
La 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 la
diverse
la bumba. Sorry,
La La
go on.
La La Bumba, yeah. She's a senior diversity officer for the trust who's got to be being paid 50 to 60,000 pounds a year. I would bet my hat that I'm not even wearing that she is paid more than a junior doctor, a resident doctor that's just joining the ranks. So I reckon she's probably earning about 50 to 60 grand a year. At the employment tribunal, she actually was questioned by one of the lawyers to say that she'd given advice to say that a biological male, a trans woman, she gave the advice to say, yes, this person should be allowed to use the hospital's changing room. And when the lawyer asked her about sex, she actually said that she didn't know what sex she was. So this is a 29-year-old woman who is so captured by this garbage ideology that she has sat there under oath in a legal proceeding and actually said that she didn't know what sex she was. And she said that I guess I would be a female, but nobody really knows what their chromosomes are or what their hormonal makeup is unless you've actually had that tested. So on what planet is a woman, somebody who is clearly a woman who knows she's a woman? I mean, I'm not being funny. Look between your legs, love. I'm sorry if that sounds a bit gross, but she knows whether or not she's a woman.
And
So
if you're a senior diversity employee, does that mean you've got other diversity people underneath you as well?
well,
Is
I
there a
guess so.
hierarchy of diversity employees at the NHS as well?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, who
We need a
only
senior
knows?
diversity officer.
Well, I mean, and who knows how much this trust is spending on these people? But the whole situation here is completely and utterly extraordinary. It's almost like there's been a witch hunt against this nurse who's raised completely legitimate concerns. And I believe that Dr. Upton actually had 2 months off work, which all would have been paid, had 2 months off work because they were so traumatized by what had happened and they felt victimized. Have you actually seen what Dr. Beth Upton looks like?
I don't know, but I'll have a look.
I
I'm
will.
just still
I'll
wondering
show you a picture. I will
if
show you a picture now.
if you
You
have
can.
senior diversity officers, does that mean do you have junior diversity officers or are they resident diversity officers? Is what I would want to
I've
know.
got no
We'll
idea.
find that out for next week.
I'm
So
sure
who's this
they
bloke
just
here?
this is Dr. Beth Upton, who apparently
She's got I tell you what, she's got a nice trimmed beard. Fair
yeah
play to her.
yeah
Fair play to her.
was so frightened and so traumatized, had to have 2 months off work. This is Dr. Upton more latterly, who I think still looks like the other person.
Has she still got the beard?
No.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sharing a picture of Dr. Upton now. I would argue Dr. Upton doesn't look that different. And Dr. Upton, to me, looks like a man, regardless of what Dr. Upton thinks about
It doesn't
themselves.
matter. He could be the most beautiful woman in the world. It doesn't matter. He's still a man. He's still biologically a man. And what I find strange is how can it's strange that basically what we're saying is that men can force women. So think of it this way: men can force women to undress to their underwear in front of them, and the women are forced to do this. But then you've got to ask the question: if, for example, if Greg Wallace had identified as a woman, would him throwing his schlong around made it any less worse? It's weird, isn't it?
Well,
It's
it's a
like
double
literally
standard, isn't it? That's a double standard.
who sat in on her disciplinary? Like, was it men? Was it literally men saying to a woman, "We are going to suspend you or even sack you because you will not get undressed in front of a biological man"? It's bananas if you think about it. It's a little bit strange.
One of the people who has given evidence at the tribunal is a woman. The diversity officer is a woman. So Dr. Upton's boss is a woman, Dr. Searle. Um, so she didn't seem to think it was a problem. She said she didn't know that she wouldn't know that she would not know if Dr. Upton was a woman unless somebody else told her so. And she agreed that she would not know what sex Dr. Upton was assigned at birth. Don't forget, Sandy Peggy was actually put on leave. So Upton made the allegation of bullying and harassment, and Sandy Peggy was actually put on work. She's a nurse who's been serving as a nurse for over 30 years. So she was put on leave. The investigation at the hospital, to my understanding, the only people I've heard of who are giving evidence are actually women, except for Dr. Upton himself, who is a man. So this is the thing that's bizarre.
Which is in law now, which is law.
Well, why are women getting involved in this nonsense? Why are they jumping on this bus and actually throwing other women under the bus? It's almost like they're a stereotype in themselves, because it's almost like they want to be seen as so kind and compassionate, which are stereotypically female traits. And the best way to be kind and compassionate, what women often do, is to just put everybody else first. So that it would be the classic stereotypical way to describe what a woman would do. I'll put everybody else first. I'll put everybody else's needs first because I'm kind and compassionate. And actually, I do believe that Searle said in the tribunal, she actually said, "I'm a kind person." Not a direct quote, but she said she's kind. Nobody who's actually kind needs. Why do you need to tell anybody that you're kind? Who needs to say that to anybody?
Well, no one cares if you can. No, that really doesn't come into it. So she can be as kind as she likes. It doesn't change the fact that someone feels uncomfortable. That it's having their rights taken away from them in a strange way. Like you just said about why would a woman defend it? It's like women have fought for over a century, well, centuries to get more and more to get their rights, and now it's like they're trying to strip them away again. It's like the only person that suffers here is the women.
Well, and you know what? I don't care as a woman. I don't care if a man wants to say they're a woman, tries to be a woman, take hormones to be a woman. Do whatever you want to do. But what you can't do is try and tell me that I must accept that you are a woman, because you are not a woman. You can't become a woman. I do not believe that you can biologically become a woman. It's a load of old rubbish. Most people know it's a load of old rubbish. I don't know why our organisations are still going along with all this. It's completely and utterly stupid. We've
Well,
had
should they
the
be? Should they be going along with it? The Supreme Court has just ruled that gender is based on biological sex now, haven't they? So are they even? It seems strange that they're actually doing all this after. Was it in April or something? The
yeah.
Supreme Court ruled.
Well, this case predates that ruling, but you've got a case recently just been in the news. There's the woman that killed her husband with a samurai sword. So you hear this story and you think, good grief, that's terrible. And an incredibly violent act. And it sounds more violent because a woman committed it. But when you actually look into the detail of it, it's not a woman at all. It's actually a man. So I don't know if you've heard about this story, but this is a man who killed her husband with a samurai sword she sliced him more than 50 times. So why is the BBC News reporting that this person is a woman? This person is a man. And if you actually look at the pictures of this woman, this is clearly a man. So you've got things like that where our institutions are ignoring what the Supreme Court has said. And this will be some lefty, do gooding, kind and compassionate people at the BBC that want to respect people's pronouns. Well, stuff your pronouns, quite frankly, because all of this is contributing, for example, in the criminal justice context, it's contributing to crime figures showing that women are committing more violent crimes. That's what's been happening for
You are.
quite a long time.
You are. You're getting more violent.
We're feeling
You're
more
getting
violent.
more
The actual
violent.
women, I think, are feeling more violent about this.
You're getting stronger. Your jawlines are getting wider. A lot of you are getting 5 o'clock shadow, and you're basically becoming a menace to society. I don't know what's got into women.
Well,
Must be those massive penises. It's the penises that's making it. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's like, but the thing is, like, most people with an ounce of common sense can look at someone and plainly see that this person is a man. And that's what's strange. It's like it's like the Emperor's New Clothes, where en masse we have to just believe that the person isn't naked, because if you believe the person's naked, then you're an idiot. And no one wants to hold their hands up and say, I am an idiot. Well, I'm more than happy to be an idiot. If someone's got a jawline like Desperate Dan and a 5 o'clock shadow, they're obviously not a woman. But I understand about being nice, and the BBC wants to be politically correct about everything, but just referring to a blatant bloke who's in a homosexual relationship with another man as a she, just it's like they're practicing the art of making the ridiculous sound plausible. It's like that's what news outlets are doing continuously. Is taking a story that 99 out of 100 people would go, that is absolutely ridiculous, and putting a plausible spin on it and trying to gaslight the masses that what they're saying is the correct version, when we all just know it's a bloke that pretends to be a woman stabbed his husband or his boyfriend or whatever he was, but he wasn't a woman, and we all know that. And is he going to a woman's prison? If he's not going to a woman's prison, don't refer to him as a woman. He's a bloke. Because if he was a woman, he'd go to a woman's prison.
Yeah, and they've stopped I think it was Dominic Raab. They've stopped the practice now because there was a whole thing with this Isla Bryson in Scotland. I mean, in Scotland they're absolutely crazy about this thing that trans rights are human rights and trans women really are women. I mean, and putting violent offenders and sexual offenders into women's prisons. It's just completely and utterly beggars belief. And I'd like to think the tide is turning on it. Following that Supreme Court ruling, it seems like there's some common sense coming back into the room. However, I'll give you a very short personal anecdote on this. So I have just received, I'm reading it now, a letter from the NHS Cervical Screening Administration Service. And it says, Dear Justine Thomas, we are writing to invite you for your NHS cervical screening, previously called the smear test. We offer screening to all women and people with a cervix aged 25 to 64 to help prevent cancer and save lives. So I am a woman. I know I am a woman, and I know I have a cervix. I've never seen it, but I know it's there. Please tell me who you think people with a cervix are. Who are these people?
Well, I can tell
How
you
do
what.
you get one? How do you get one?
You buy one. You can buy them now. You can buy them. They sell them at B&Q. 3
How
for 2.
do people get a cervix? Because we've got, let me just check, people with a cervix. How did these people get this cervix?
Well,
I
this
need
is
to
what
know
I'm
the
saying.
answer to the
Well,
question.
It's like I said earlier. We are literally erasing women from society. It's like when you. Well, I don't know the word. You tell me the posh word. Demote a woman to something like to someone who's called a person with a cervix. we are literally erasing women from society, aren't we? I think we're being pretty awful to women, and that's the thing. It's women have fought for the right to be heard, and now we're just getting battered down by men who want to pretend they are women.
Shouty, arrogant,
Shouty, shouty.
violent, awful men who go out
0.1 percenters.
protesting. Yeah, they
0.1
go.
percenters.
Yeah, they go out protesting, but they're all when they're protesting, they're all full of hate. They're very shouty. They're very aggressive.
Very muscly as well.
They're men. That's why they're very shouty and aggressive. And cosplaying as a woman does not make you a woman. And I don't care if you want to do that, quite frankly. You can go and do it, but you're not taking my rights away from me as a woman. And they are just bullying themselves into women's spaces because they are male bullies. It's as simple as that. So I want to know, do you actually know how you get a cervix? Can you answer me that question?
Well,
What's
I
your
probably
best
can.
guess?
I mean, I'm a little bit embarrassed here, but you're kind of born with a cervix.
I
I mean,
agree. I think
the
you're
only
right.
way to have a cervix is to be born,
Yeah.
and let's put it this way: it doesn't connect your bladder to your penis. It connects something else that kind of only a woman can have. And even if a woman kind of like manufactured a willy, they still wouldn't be able to have a cervix. Or the other way around. Sorry, if you had your willy turned into if you had your outie turned into an innie, it wouldn't connect your innie to a womb that you never had
Yes.
because you haven't got one.
Yes.
I mean, and if a Dumbo like me knows that answer, then I'm pretty sure anyone who pretends they don't is probably even dumber than me. And if you're dumber than me, you're in trouble.
So do you think I won't comment? I won't be drawn on whether anybody's dumber than you or not, Gareth, or how possible that is. I wouldn't like to say. But do we agree then? I just need clarity on this point. So we are agreed that people with a cervix we think, and we're not doctors, we are not, let me just check, the NHS Cervical Screening Administration Service, which sounds quite formal, sounds medical, sounds like they should know what they're talking about. So we're agreed that people with a cervix are most likely women. Is that what we're saying?
I wouldn't say it was even most likely. I would say in 100% terms, if you've got
Yes.
a cervix,
I think
you are a woman.
So too. I think so
And
too.
for anyone who doesn't know what a cervix is, I believe it's a tunnel that goes from one lady part to another lady part, and it's a tunnel.
I've not looked at any.
A tunnel? You know the Channel Tunnel? We should name a tunnel. You know how we've got Blackwall? Is it Blackwall Tunnel?
Blackwall's matter.
Blackwall Tunnel or the Dartford Tunnel. We should have the cervix tunnel. And at the entrance to the tunnel, we should have a big pair of legs like that. And we should just go into, and then on the inside of the tunnel, we can have like things, educational things. You imagine your car is a sperm. You're traveling down the cervix.
You can have pictures of J.K. Rowling, Kathleen Stark, Maya Forstater, or Helen Joyce, all of these fab people, and we'll have them all there with all their halos on, all sparkly and everything at the end of the tunnel. So, no, and I agree with you. So what I'm going to do, because we both know, I mean, I said, are we mostly agreed, but we know that people with the cervix are women, but the
Correct.
NHS, they obviously have a different definition. So what I'm going to do is I am going to write to the NHS Cervical Screening Administration Service, and I'm actually going to ask them what definition they're ascribing to people with a cervix. And we'll do a I'll write a letter, or I'll do a freedom of information request, and we'll come back to this in 4 to 5 weeks' time, and we'll see what response we get. And just as a final point on that, I do have a leaflet here, and the leaflet is actually really interesting. I don't know if you can see this, but the leaflet there, it looks to me like all the people on the front of that leaflet, they all look like women. None of them look like people with a cervix, because I think we know what they are ascribing to. But we'll find out. We'll ask the question.
Yeah. Well, Some of them women may have penises, some may not. I suppose what they're trying to cater for is big testosterone men who have a vagina that want to get their smeared that want to get their smeared on. So literally big geezer, spider's web tattoo, big beard like that, biker, comes in his Harley Davidson, pulls up at the hospital, comes in. You're right, love. I'm here for my smear. I mean, I don't think that happens very often. I'm that way around probably doesn't happen. But I actually, the reason they probably do it is because there will be a female that's tried her whole life to transition into a bloke that has got a tuppy, and they would not go to their smear because they identified as a man. That person then gets cervical cancer and sues the NHS for £10 million because they didn't give her the treatment she whatever you want to call them needed, and that's what we're doing. That we're literally in a position where you have to cover every angle.
Yes.
But to what
But if the
expense? The
NHS just said
expense of
you're a
women.
woman, however you portray yourself or however you project
Well,
yourself,
biological
fundamentally,
woman.
you're a woman. And that's
What's
the
the new
end of
saying
it.
they've got now? What's the assigned at birth?
Assigned at birth. Yeah.
Assigned at birth. That's pretty. That goes back to the wage.
That's
You know,
wrong.
people
Can I just
people want their wages that they were assigned in 2008. It's the same kind of
2008.
thing, isn't it? I want the wages that we were assigned in 2008, even though I wasn't even born in 2008. And it's the same thing, isn't it? Oh, what was I assigned with it? But well, you had a cock. You were a
Well, and
man.
I would actually say
Sorry, you had a penis.
There's a I would actually say the whole thing about being they use this expression assigned at birth. I'm assuming that people use that because they mean legally assigned at birth, but actually your sex is assigned at conception. It's not assigned at birth. You are not sexless, you are not genderless until the point where you're born. You're at the point of conception. That is when you are assigned your sex. But legally, you are assigned your sex. Not even actually at birth. You're actually assigned your sex when you go and you complete your birth certificate, when your birth is registered. So that's when sex is assigned in law, if you like.
Careful, because you'll have all these parents not wanting to. You're going to start something now, because you're going to have all these progressive parents not getting birth certificates for their children, because it's the child's decision. Let the child decide.
That's interesting. Yeah,
let the child decide.
Yeah, actually, it wouldn't surprise me if there was some legal case where some parents, I think you're right, will actually say, no, I'm not registering my child's birth, or will refuse to put the sex of the child on the birth certificate.
Guaranteed that's happened.
May have already happened. But I think in law, you've got to do it. Births, Marriages, Deaths Act, whatever it is. So we'll look that up for another time. We'll do a little fact check on that. But yeah, you've got to put the sex on the birth certificate, because then I think people get these certificates, don't they?
Because it's the law, and we don't yet live in a lawless society.
Or do we?
Not well, according to Nigel Farage, we do. What a good segue. So I don't know if you saw it, but Nigel Farage did his little press conference. Was it yesterday, day before? But what a refreshing thing it is just to see a politician or any, elite, the person in the elite who has a platform, just standing up and just saying some common sense things that everyone or most people in the UK have been screaming at their TV or at their radio maybe for the last decade, is that crime is out of control. We don't punish criminals. And literally, we are becoming a lawless society where crime is just accepted as a day-to-day occurrence in everyone's lives. I mean, he did his little speech the other day. I mean, a couple of things he said, just focusing on London. 1 in 3 people in London have experienced theft when it comes to mobile phones. 1 in 3. I mean, what is the population of London now? Is it like 5 million, 7 million, between
10
6
million?
million? So, I don't know. Well, it's going up and up and up all the time. He talked about the fact that, shoplifting is just become socially accepted. You can steal anything under £200 from a shop, literally walk out, nothing seems to happen. There's like open drug use in the cities. And literally, no one is afraid of the police anymore. So he said he's going to crack down. He's going to, he said a few things. He's going to introduce a three-strike rule. So kind of like what they did in America in the,
Hmm.
was it like late 80s, 90s, three strikes,
Yeah,
you're
was
out.
that New
So
York? Was that Rudy Giuliani? What was his?
Rudy Giuliani. I don't know if it was New York. I think it was Los Angeles that did the
Right.
three-strike
Okay.
rule, but I'm not 100% sure. He's on about sending criminals abroad to these super prisons, which, in fact, a lot of people in Europe are already doing. I'm sure Norway sends its prisoners abroad as well. So basically, yeah, I think on this issue, as someone who would be a reform voter, it looks like there's a politician that's actually speaking to the masses here, rather than speaking to what he thinks his voter bases, which is basically he's saying what the majority of people in this country want to hear, which is that he's going to be tough on crime, he's going to clear the streets of criminals, and he's actually going to make crime pay. Which is, I don't know how you can argue with that sentiment. I mean, other than like dressing up as Batman himself,
Make crime not pay. You said he's
make
going to make crime pay. You
oh,
mean make
sorry,
crime
yeah,
not pay?
sorry, make crime not pay, and literally, I mean, I don't think he's actually reinvented the wheel. I don't think he's saying anything that anyone sees as totally, off the wall. It's like he's basically saying we're not going to let criminals out early. We're going to make criminals pay for their actions, and we're not just going to accept low-level crime as the norm on the
Yeah.
British streets. He was on about he's going to employ 30,000 more police officers. Um, yeah, and basically, it's just a lot of common sense policy. I know a lot of people have ribbed him and said, it's on the back of a fag packet where you're going to get all this money from. But, it looks like they've got their Doge set up where they want to save a lot of money from the public expenditure anyway. And if they reduce crime, then surely we're going to save a lot of money through not having to pay for the fact that there's so much crime in our country. So I don't know. I think it's good luck. I think it's rather than people just going on about reform and all they care about is immigrants and they're just a one issue party. It's just nice to hear common sense policies coming from them, if I'm honest.
Well, I think you're right about people will say, "Oh, it's on the back of a fag packet," blah blah blah, in terms of the cost. But you're right. Crime has immeasurable cost across our society. It's not just measured in financial terms. It wrecks people's lives. And for me, the hot topic for me is always because of the nature of what I've done as a volunteer, and also in my sort of academic studies. The law is really fascinating to me, but crime and punishment are things that should be on the highest agenda for our country's security. And this is why we talk so much about immigration, and why we talk about the small boats and illegal immigration, however that happens, because ultimately, the government has got to keep citizens safe. If citizens don't feel safe, they will start to take the law into their own hands to keep themselves safe. It's the most primeval of instincts to keep yourself safe. That's what we've been doing since we were in
But isn't
caves.
isn't that the main job of that's like the number one
Yes.
tenet of government
Yes.
is to keep your city, and like you say, crime and but we should be holding crime and punishment up there. The only thing we've got is crime at the moment. We don't seem to have much punishment, do we?
Yeah.
Um,
Do you know what? What is the cost? Well, this is a rhetorical question. Scrap net zero, and you could absolutely transform the criminal justice system
we
in
could
this
transform the
country.
country, could transform the
So
country, and then
exactly.
what about the
So,
9 billion a year for immigrants, like paying for immigrants? We can find the money to do all these madcap things,
well, we
but
can
we can't
find
find the money for
we can find £41,000 a year to keep a air quotes asylum seeker here, as in an economic migrant here. So why can't we find 5 grand It wouldn't even cost that to stick them on a plane and send them to Rwanda or El Salvador or whatever. Of course we can find it. There's no particular will, but I don't want to get too much onto the immigration thing, just sticking with crime for a moment. So the criminal justice system has been massively underinvested in. So we lost tens of thousands of police officers under Boris. You know, you need police officers. You need police officers out arresting actual criminals, not people who are saying things on social media. They need to be out actually arresting criminals, building good cases. We need a Crown prosecution service that pays decent prosecutors and can attract talent that can build cases that can result in successful prosecutions. To do that, we need a functioning court system. There's a massive shortage of legal advisors in the lower level courts, in the criminal justice system. You can't operate a magistrate's court without a legal advisor. If there's a shortage of legal advisors, the courts can't operate. Court buildings have been closed, but many courts in buildings that are still operating aren't open because there aren't the people to run the courts and to actually make the courts function. So there's a massive underinvestment in the court system. And then in terms of you get to the point where people may plead guilty or you'll have a trial, then you're into sentencing. Well, in terms of sentencing, what are we doing in terms of actually executing the purposes of sentencing? You know, how are the courts actually doing that? So, you know, the primary purposes of sentencing people isn't just punishment and protecting the public, but we've also got to look at rehabilitating offenders and actually reducing crime through deterrence and actually people making amends for their crimes. So all of those things are what's supposed to be happening in sentencing. And I'm not sure that that's always happening. You've got a probation service that is completely stretched to the limit. How are we managing offenders in a way that means we can rehabilitate them if we haven't got a robust probation service with enough probation officers to deal with the number of
Well,
cases they've
how's about we
got?
just punish people? Why can't we just punish people? Why have we got to
Well,
rehabilitate everyone? Why does
well,
everyone need rehabilitate? Rehabilitate them. We can just lock them away. That's what
yeah,
Farage is saying. He wants to lock the bad
but
people
lock who
away.
away? You can't lock everybody away. So
Well, you can.
somebody,
You
let's
can.
say
He's
somebody,
going to build some Nightingale prisons. He's going to build Nightingale prisons, and he's basically going to say, if you break the law, we're going to lock you away, and we're not going to let you out early. All this good behaviour. Oh, you're out in 50%. Farage is saying no. We're going to
well,
lock you away, and we're going to keep you away, and because normal people, law-abiding people in society, don't want the criminals out in the street. They want them locked up.
yeah, but
Lock them up.
lock who up? You can't lock everybody up. So
You
if
can.
somebody,
In
let's
theory, you
say,
can, can't you? It's El
well,
Salvador's
you
done it, haven't
can
they?
do. You can do, but what's the outcome of that? Because if you lock people up, when they come out of prison, you're assuming that having been to prison, that is enough of a deterrent to make sure that people will
It
not
is if
commit
you lock
crime
them up
again.
long enough. If you lock them up long enough, it is a deterrent. But that's the thing. If you get sentenced to 18 months and you're out in 6, this is what Farage is saying.
Well,
You
that's to
know,
do with sentence length, and you're talking about
well,
custodial sentences.
yeah,
So
well,
there were
make it
lots of
count.
crimes. Yeah,
Make it
well, no,
count.
I
Punish
don't
people hard. I don't break the law. So you could steal a car and get sent away for 10 years and it won't bother me because I'm not going to steal a car. And most people aren't going to steal a car. So if we make sentences longer and punish people, looking like places like Thailand and stuff like that, you get found with a wrap of class A's on you. You go to prison for life. Now, how many people do you know, apart from the thick ones, that go taking cocaine in Thailand? You know, nobody, because everyone will say to you, don't go to Thailand and take drugs or you're done for. It's the opposite in this country. We're the I mean, they are, super strict. But we're the absolute opposite in this country. We don't punish anyone. And it's all right rehabilitating everyone. Let's rehabilitate them. No. There's some people can't be rehabilitated. Just
I
punish
agree
them.
with you.
Send them
Yeah,
away.
I agree with you,
Get
but it's
rid.
too simplistic to say just send everybody into prison and leave them there.
No, I'm not saying
Why?
leave them. I'm not saying
Well,
leave them.
okay. So reoffending rates are anywhere between 20 and 30%. That's kind of like the average over time. So if you've got people who are constantly reoffending, wouldn't you rather try and address that offending behaviour so
No,
when they come out, nobody else falls victim to that
no.
person?
No.
So
I
what are you
would
going to do then?
rather.
Just lock
Well,
lock them up forever then? So
no, no,
let's say somebody
no,
hang
no.
on, wait, let me make my
You
point.
just said, would I lock them up forever? No, but I
Right.
know what I
So
would do.
okay. So somebody commits a so one point that we agree on is that I actually believe that the time you are sentenced for your offence, you should not have any automatic right to leave prison early. So if you are sentenced under 4 years, in the old money, it was half of your sentence served, and you would be out. You would go out. You'd be on post sentence supervision. Keep your nose clean. Happy days. If you were sentenced over 4 years, you would serve 2/3 of your sentence. Happy days, keep your nose clean. Right. Well, I actually believe that, the other thing is if you get sentenced to life imprisonment, you should go to prison for life. All this life with a minimum recommendation of 21 years, really what you're saying is, well, we're sentencing you to 21 years. That's what the public feel. That's not really the case, but I think that's what the public feel, that the person's been sentenced to 21 years, that, life should mean life. So I think that in terms of then sending people to prison, let's say somebody commits a burglary. So somebody commits a burglary, they don't use violence. Okay. That's an awful crime, very bad, very awful. This is not a victimless crime. People can claim on insurance. People are terrified. They actually feel their spaces are being invaded. It causes deep trauma for people. But that burglar, okay, fine, we bang him up for 6 months. Or I'm going to say him
Well,
because it's
that's my
mostly
point.
males.
That's my
So we
point.
bang
How
him up
dare
for
you?
6 months.
How dare you judge people's gender, burglars' gender? How dare you? People with
So
cervix
all
can
the
burgle
all
houses
the
too.
all the people with cervixes or without cervixes, whoever they are, so they basically they go to prison. This person goes to prison for 6 months. We let them out. So we've done nothing to address that offending behaviour. And they come out and they go and do it again. Now somebody else is traumatized, has got
No, 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 no.
a lifelong trauma that they've suffered because of this person. To say that you shouldn't make any attempt to rehabilitate people is just utterly ridiculous.
No, it
It
isn't.
won't work.
No, I
It
think you're
just
wrong.
won't work.
For the most part, rehabilitation just doesn't work. But let me tell you this: you're on about, oh, someone burgles a house and they get 6 months. Yeah, I think they should get 5 years. If you go into someone else's house and invade someone else's personal space in that manner, you should be sentenced to 5 years, right? Put burglars in prison for 5 years, right? And within a year, burglary rates will drop. The fact that people will burgle houses is because they're happy to go to prison for 6 months. Because when they get sentenced to 6 months for a burglary, they're out in 3 months. They
Yeah, well,
don't
let's say
care.
5 years then. Well,
Yeah. So you burgle someone's house, you go away for 5 years, then you come out, you burgle the house again, and you go to jail for another 5 years. That's 10 years off the streets. And I guarantee anyone will tell you that would dramatically cut burglary rates. The problem is we don't punish people. We don't punish people. Forget rehabilitation. People are at a stage now. They don't. We're sick of being. I'm sick of us being so kind. We need to rehabilitate. Let's rehabilitate rapists. Let's rehabilitate child rapists. Let's rehabilitate murderers. You got people that killed people have killed multiple people and are out of prison in 15, 20
mm,
years. You look at America. If you kill someone in America, the chances are you're going to prison forever, and you're never coming out. But then again, if you're the type of person who wants to murder someone, who's going to kill someone with a samurai sword, the normal British person doesn't want you out in the street anymore. If you're going to burgle someone's house, go to prison for 5 years. Build en masse the Nightingale hospitals that Nigel Farage is on about, and send burglars to prison for 5 years. And you'll stop the problem. That's why there's no massive drug problem in Thailand, because you'll go to prison forever.
yeah, okay, I get that. Let's be clear. I think that the punishment aspect of sentencing needs to be more harsh. I don't believe people should be released from prison early just because the length of their sentence says that there's that there's a bog standard early release date. I think the amount of time that you get sentenced should be the amount of time that you serve. There should be some cases. There's an argument to say that you could say, well, for exceptional behaviour, people who've completely turned their lives around, we could list things all day, that why not let those people out early if they're going to be of value to society. But if you've got somebody who's drug addicted, who's burgling because they're a drug addict, send them to prison for 5 years. If all they do is carry on taking drugs in prison, and that's the thing we could talk about all day. I mean, the how drugs get into prison is just absolutely insane. I mean, they're using drones to drop drugs into prison. I mean, we somebody in our family works in the prison system, so we've heard all the stories about what happens in prisons and how the prisoners are basically off their faces half the day. But I think maybe that's better for some of the prisons because they are all kind of quiet and chilled out. Maybe the prison officers have got less to deal with. I don't know. I don't work in the prison system, but what I do know is that study upon study has shown that rehabilitation programs do help cut the rates of reoffending. People who are homeless, people who are drug addicted, people who are poorly educated, people who have don't have a job. If you can change some of those things in people's lives, you will reduce the amount of offending, and ultimately all of these things together, whether it's locking people away, whether it's rehabilitating people, what we actually want is less crime. I think we're both agreed on that. I don't necessarily agree with you that the route to less crime is just to have more highly punitive sentences and that will act as a deterrent. I think that works to an extent, and I think it depends on the
100% it will.
person.
The
Well,
only
you know,
thing that stops
it
people
depends on
committing
the person.
crimes is consequences. Take it. Look,
No,
last
I don't.
weekend.
That's not true. It isn't true because people still no, people commit crime and they know of the consequences, but for certain reason they know the risk, but they still continue to take it. They understand the risk of their actions, but they still
I don't
do the
agree.
crime.
Okay, well, why doesn't anyone? Okay, put it right. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Right, the other day, a week ago, someone robbed my van. Okay, someone robbed my van, and at the time, it had. I was in between places, and they robbed all the tools out of my van. Yeah, so all in all, it had a laptop in there, drills, all sorts. All in all, about 3,000 quid's worth, right? So I'm about 3 grand down, right? Now that person, he may have been on drugs. He's so desperate that he needed to rob the stuff that I'd worked my arse off and paid for. But anyway, let's think of him. He might be in such a state that he had to rob my van. Well, why isn't that guy robbing banks? Why isn't every guy that's prepared to break into my van prepared to break into a bank, to rob a bank at gunpoint? Answer me that. Why? Because if they're like you said, if they're that desperate, they'll do anything and not care about the consequences. And I'll tell you why they won't rob a bank, but they'll rob a van. Because if they rob a van and do me out of 3 grand's worth of stuff, which is, a lot of money and a lot of inconvenience and a lot of time where I can't do my job because I've got to replace things, the reason they'll do that instead of robbing a bank is because they won't get punished. Even if they got caught and sent to prison, they'd do 3 months, which is nothing. It's 12 weeks. It's 12 weeks. You can meditate for 12 weeks, right? If you rob a bank, I know someone who went into a bank with their hand in a sock, drunk, and went, "Give me all your money," and they did 8 years in prison. Yeah, you go to rob a well, it was a post office. Go to rob a bank, you're going to do 10 years. Rob a van or do a lower or what you would perceive to be um, a lower grade of crime. You're going to do 3 months. So it's not. It's just the consequences aren't there, right? You rob a van, you do 5 years. You ain't going to rob the vans either. You're not going to rob the bank. You're not going to rob the van.
Well, you were going to ask me a question, so what's the question?
Yeah, the question is, if you're saying they don't care about the consequences and that's why they do it and they need to be rehabilitated, why don't they rob banks? Why do they do lower level
So
crimes?
there's two immediate things that spring to mind. Well, there's a main reply and then a sub point. Robbing a bank is a lot more sophisticated, I would imagine,
Or a
than
post office,
robbing
then. Let's say a post
or a
office.
post office. I would imagine that is a bit more sophisticated to execute and actually walk away with the proceeds of the crime than it is to rob a car. Because even you might say, well, if you walk in with a gun, it's quite easy to rob a post office. Okay. Yes, I mean you're at next level into that. To me, robbing somebody at gunpoint, robbing a post office or a bag. To me, robbing a bank or a post office at gunpoint cannot be categorized as somebody stealing a laptop and tools out of a van. The crime is not the same. The impact on the victims is not the same. They're not the same offence. And you can't just say it's theft, it's terrible, put everybody in prison, lump them all together, because what you're saying then is that you have no hierarchy of offences. So if somebody steals 3 grand's worth of stuff, the actual starting point for that is, I believe that's a band C fine. So that's like 150% of the person's relevant weekly income. So if that person is on universal credit, the fine for that will be £180. That is utterly ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. That's no deterrent. There's no punishment. We're not going to rehabilitate anybody because nobody's going to bother to try and rehabilitate them for that low level of crime, because there aren't the resources to rehabilitate that person. So let's say that person has a drug addiction. Ultimately, if people commit crime because they're addicted to drugs, yes, they have to be punished for their offences. But because they've come to the attention of the criminal justice system, this is surely the exact point in that person's life. Then we should be implementing programs. We should be helping that person to rehabilitate themselves, to ensure
I'm
that
not
when they come out of
interested.
prison, they don't do it to somebody
I'm
else.
not bothered. I don't care about rehab. Well, here's a good one. If you're watching this
But maybe if
discussion
we'd
now,
hang on. But maybe if we'd rehabilitated the person that nicked the stuff from your van, you would be bothered, because your van might not have
well,
got
no,
broken
because if they were
into.
already in prison for 5 years the last time they did it, then they wouldn't be out on the streets robbing my van. But
But they've
anyway,
robbed somebody else's in 5
well,
years.
yeah, but that's what I mean. But they'll either do it another 10 times or they'll do it 2 times, and that's what I'm saying. Is over time the consequences of doing that will be so skew-if to the crime that people will think twice before they do it. But what I'm
So you're
saying
saying
is,
it's like a sort of economy of scale.
yes, yes. Look, if you got 5 years for doing the crimes that you're getting 6 months for now, you'd see a 75% reduction in a couple of years because people would think about their actions before they. But this is what I'm saying. People aren't bothered. They don't care. The punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Yeah,
You can
I mean,
walk
I
into a
agree with
shop
you.
and
I
steal
can agree with you
£200
on
worth of
that.
things, physically assault someone, and get 3 months in prison. It's not a punishment. So normal people on the street don't care about rehabilitating people. They're not interested. We're past that. A lot of people are past, and that goes back to the thing, lawless Britain. It hasn't worked, has it? We're in a state where Nigel Farage stood up there and saying we are literally approaching a stage of anarchy in this country. So great, rehabilitation, hold hands, sing kumbaya, play the guitar, whatever. It ain't working. It's not working. We've been doing this for years. And people like you have been saying this for years. We must rehabilitate. It works in Scandinavian countries. We can do this. We can rehabilitate. Screw them. You've stolen my tools. You've stolen my tools. I want you in prison for 5 years. I want you to suffer. If you kill someone, I want you to go to prison forever. You took a life. I want to take your life. Not literally, figuratively. I want to send you to prison for the rest of your life. You took a life. You kill a baby. You go to prison. Let's bring back the death penalty. We want consequences. Consequences for our action. It's very important. It's how most of the people have to live our lives. If you work a job, if you do something stupid, you get sacked. You lose your livelihood. Everything, consequences for everything. Apart from the people that do these low-grade crimes to fund drug habits and to fund their deviant way of life, you go into a shop, you steal hundreds of pounds from a shop, and there's no punishment. Send them to prison for 5 years. But let me just say this one thing. If you are watching this video now, I want people to comment who they agree with, because that's the only way to know. Who do you agree with? Do you agree with me? Or do you agree with my sister who thinks we should rehabilitate everybody? Or should we just punish people hard? Hard.
So that's yeah. Well, that's a bit yeah. You've made your point. You've made your point quite strongly, but you're skewing what I'm saying, because I don't disagree that punishment should be harsher and more severe. Yeah, well, we don't need to meet in the middle, but I do believe that rehabilitation should form part of the package of what sentencing provides for the community and for society. And I think if you just abandon rehabilitation in favor of every sentence is all about punitive measures, I actually don't think in the long term that's going to work. I
Well,
just
why can't we
don't.
try it? Why can't we try it? I mean, we've tried rehabilitate. Have we? Okay, answer me this. You're the legal eagle. How long have we took this approach for? doing rehabilitation? How long? Because you work in the legal. Well, you've worked in the legal system. You're a legal eagle. You've a thousand times more intelligent than me. How long have we tried to implement this approach of rehabilitation? Take the floor.
Well, I think rehabilitation has been part of the justice system since we've had a justice system, trying to get people to make amends for what they've done and trying to get people not to do behavior that we would consider to be deviant or behavior that we don't want to have in a civil society. That's been around for a long time. But in terms of actually the points that we're talking about and where the points of difference is, I don't have a problem with people having longer custodial sentences, but you have to consider how you make sure that you reduce the amount of reoffending. It is a massive problem, and I don't see any evidence that removing rehabilitation will cut reoffending rates.
Oh no, no, I don't. I don't believe in that. I think the punishment is the rehabilitation. The punishment, that sense that you're being punished badly,
Yeah, and
is the rehabilitation.
I think more people should be sent to custody. We definitely need more custodial places. I mean, we had an issue a year ago where Starmer was letting people out of prison early, people who've committed really violent offences, so he can make space for people like Lucy Connolly, people who are writing, the old hurty words online. Why are we letting violent offenders out of prison? And there is a hierarchy of offending. Different crimes have different impacts. And actually, as a society over time, the offences that have an economic impact, we don't take them as seriously in the round as offences against the person, and rightly so. If somebody commits a cyber theft and steals £3 million, I do not rank that crime as highly as somebody who murders a child. Those two crimes, they're incomparable, but that's the point. They are incomparable. And that's why we do categorize crime. We categorize crime in terms of sentencing. But look, it's all right talking about sentencing. You've got to actually get to the point where someone either pleads guilty or they're actually found guilty of an offence. And to do that, you've got to have police out investigating crime. And police are spending too much time policing what people are thinking, having their time wasted by people who are on X or Facebook contacting the police force to complain, and sending multiple people around to arrest people who've put something in a parents' WhatsApp group that the school doesn't like, or they've offended the school. All of these things are complete and utter waste of police resources, and police should be out there catching criminals. But the Home Office has announced that they're going to set up a task force to police what people are writing online about protesting against migrants, anti-migrant sentiment. Why on earth are the police, or why is the Home Office, who is in charge of the police, obviously it's part of the same department, why is the Home Office putting resource into policing anti-migrant sentiment?
So
What
they can
business is it?
rehabilitate us.
Yeah, well, what business is it of the security services if I, you, or anybody else wants to post anti-migrant sentiment? Well, it's none of their
Well,
business. I have freedom of expression, or I should do. Freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of conscience. They're supposed to be some of the cornerstones of our society. And if I want to think something and express it, as long as I am not inciting somebody to go and commit violence against another person, then to me that should be my inalienable right. And I don't know why anybody needs to police that. But people are being sent to prison for that. So do you think Lucy Connolly's of this world, do you think she needed sending to prison for 31 months?
I don't know, but let's hope we rehabilitate her. So, talking of anti-migrant sentiment, then there's a lot kicking off at the in Epping at the Bell Hotel. I mean, have you heard about what's going on there at the moment?
Well, yes. And not only that, there are demonstrations taking in other places. So, as you know, I live in Norfolk, and there is a hotel in Norwich that's housed migrants for quite some time. And there was a protest there yesterday. Two of the migrants at that hotel have been convicted and sentenced of serious offences just in the last 3 months. But people don't want these people living in their community. But where do they go? I mean, we shouldn't have these people here in the first place. They shouldn't be living in hotels, but where do we put these people?
Well, yeah, and there's a couple of questions. Like I say, the one in Epping, I think, started out because there was an accusation of a sexual assault, which seems to be a theme running, across the land in terms of, you know, sexual age migrants coming over and potentially not having the same views on women as we would have, for example. But I think one of the main stories that came out of it wasn't just like anti-migrant sentiment, but it was the fact that it was a peaceful protest where, normal people within that community had genuine concerns about the safety of children in that
Yeah.
area. Um, and what strikes me is again strange the way our strange behaviour is that we just label all these people as right wing extremists.
Far
It's
right.
far right, yeah, and it's like you've got there was videos of the mother, stood up talking into that microphone, just saying that she was scared. She was scared for her community, and she was scared because she didn't know. I mean, again, it's not to do with the color of people's skin or anything like that. It's the fact that there are undocumented males, all for the most part, seem to be between their 20s and 30s, apart from the ones that pretend they're 14, that are living in these hotels. And you've got people in that area who don't know who they are or what they're about or what their history is, and they're not allowed to work. They're hanging about around the town. I think that the Bell Hotel it was next to a secondary school, which obviously half the people in that school are going to be young teenage girls. And there has been reports of people being inappropriate um, with young girls. And I think it's just sparked. I don't see why local people having genuine concerns within their area, and that's an important point. Local people having concerns about issues that are going on in their area, because then another issue. Not only the first issue is labeling peaceful protesters far right, and then the second issue is that Essex police it looks like they've actually been escorting radical left wing protesters that aren't from the local area
Yeah.
into the same vicinity as the local protesters, and escorting them in to counter protest. And you've got radical left wing like Antifa type people covering their faces that look like they've been driven to that protest by the local police.
Yeah, those police have got time to escort those activists to harass mothers who are concerned about the safety of their children. And as you say, they live in that area. But the police haven't got the resources to go out and actually police the streets and actually prevent these people or any people committing these sorts of crimes in the first place. And quite frankly, Essex police have got a lot to answer for. They denied, didn't they, that they took those protesters
Yeah,
there.
they
In fact,
lied. They lied. They didn't
they
deny it. They
category
lied. Yeah,
denied
lied.
it. But I mean, we've seen images of people in cars. Now, ultimately, I guess they would say, well, those people have got the right to protest. Well, maybe they have got the right to protest, but it seems very odd to me. I think the last count, there's about 2,000 protesters there. Why are 2,000 people? Why do these people feel that they've got to go and protest against a bunch of women and local people? What is wrong with these people? Why are they doing this?
And why but that's the thing. That's what's strange for me is that obviously the people that are protesting are locals. They live in that area, but then you've got people being shipped in from outside the area. So surely, if there were demonstrators from the local area that were pro-immigrant, they're the people that should be there. I don't understand why protesters from out, because I know it's a national issue, but on this particular for this particular story, it's a local issue. So if there's no local resistance to these mothers protesting, why are the police shipping in protesters that aren't from Epping? It makes no sense, because does that mean we're shipping left wing protesters around the country and making it look like the nation is all left wing when actually it's just the same people being bussed all around the country? I don't know. It's strange.
Well, there's a lot of things going on there to unpick in what you've said, because ultimately, do you advocate then that people shouldn't be allowed to protest if they don't live in the area of the thing that they want to protest about? I mean, I don't advocate that, but I don't understand why these people are there. They're from a group called Stand Up to Racism, which is funded by the TUC, isn't it? So I think Diane Abbott's got something to do with this group as well. They're very sort of part of their raison d'etre is anti-reform UK. So I just think, why are these people there? Those people need to take a look in the mirror, but they're not going to, because they always think that they have the moral high ground. They're the ones who tend to start shouting and screaming. My understanding is the actual people the original protesters who were protesting about the migrants being in the hotel, who don't want them there, have been completely peaceful. I'm not aware that anybody has been, arrested from that side. I don't really know. I don't know if there's been any violence there. I don't know.
I
I
think
feel
there has
like I'm
been a
not.
little bit. I think you're always there's some people who have caused a bit of trouble, I think. But what I'm saying is, when you have an organic protest, you've got a group of people with one defined set of beliefs or issues or things they want to demonstrate again. And then what I'm saying is then organically you should have people with opposing views, and they protest with each other. What I'm saying is, on this occasion, it feels to me, and you can articulate it better maybe, is that you've got an organic local population that has an issue, but on the other side, it's not an organic counter position. It's more a shipped in militia. It feels like that
Yes.
have just been shipped in. So it doesn't seem like they're on the seesaw of the same argument. It's like this
It's
side just is
protesting for
radical.
protesting's
Yeah,
sake.
and that's what I'm saying and you're right. What you said is right. Is if you have an alternate position on something, then of course you should be able to protest against that. But these people come across on these lefties. It's like they're kind of like they come across as, even if they're like paid agitators, or
Yeah.
they don't have a sincere belief system where they've got um an actual point to make on this. It's just, you're racist, you're racist, you're racist. Ah! Whereas the local people seem to have genuine concerns about things that have been happening in their area. And that's why
Yes.
I'm saying this protesting counter, and then bring into that the fact that police have escorted them. And you have got the right to, and it is the police's job to uphold the right of anyone to protest. But I don't think it's the police's job to physically facilitate the protest. I think that's the difference, and that's why it just seems a bit weird. And I think that's why, once again, the masses, people are looking at this story, and it's not passing the sniff test. It just seems a bit weird. It's like, what are the bearing in mind as well, Essex Police, they've got the highest rate of detaining and arresting people for thought crimes on Facebook and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It just seems normal people look at this and they just feel that something's not right, and they don't. It's hard to pinpoint what is wrong and why are certain people or certain groups behaving like that. And again, going back to the theme before, local women that have got a problem, local girls that are scared, are shut down continuously. Once again, women just being shut down. Your concerns aren't valid. You've been forced to change in the changing rooms with a man. Shut up. Your children are being hassled by undocumented migrants that you don't know.
This is a police force that in 2023 solved less than 15%. In fact, I think less than 14% of all reported crime. So, as you say, they've got the highest rate of arresting people for thought crimes, but they're unable to solve any real crime, and they're protecting people. Or, the police are there to protect people, but bussing people into protest, to me, is going way and above the remit
Yeah.
of facilitating peaceful protest.
And
And
labeling people far. What's with this label far right for everyone who has an issue? It's like, I'm concerned as a normal citizen. I don't care if the guy comes from Poland, from Ireland, or whatever. But if you have thousands of people that are coming over that you don't know who they are, they throw away the documentation, they're completely undocumented. They could be serial killers, they could be rapists, they could be escapees from prisons in other lands. We don't know. Is me having genuine concerns about those people does that make me far right and a nasty person? I just think it makes me
Absolutely
a normal
not.
person. So why?
Yeah,
So to
exactly,
label these people
exactly.
as far right is just ridiculous, and it's insulting. Actually, it's insulting.
There's a group of far left agitators, and they are probably the same people who are at the pro Palestine marches. They're probably part of the jihadi stop oil mob. You know, these are people for whom, if they're not their whole thing in life is just to be out protesting. And they're always raging against what they see as a far right machine. And you're absolutely right. People have got really legitimate concerns about immigration, about undocumented migrants, about law and order, about the way that women are treated in society and are being marginalized by men who not happy enough to actually be the top dogs having and be men, that they've now got to take just a little bit of what women have got for themselves. And people are speaking out about that. People are finding a voice. More and more people are feeling that they can speak out about these things and saying, no, I'm not going to hide in the shadows. I'm not going to talk about it behind my curtains or just nod along to the TV, but not talk about it with my, my friends or my community. People are talking about it, and they are turning around and they are saying, enough is enough. We don't want this. We don't want our country going down this route. And yeah, we want our country back. We want our country to be a lawful civil society where children can go out and play, where women can feel safe on the streets, and where people can go out to work in peace and not expect some lowlife, no mark, to break into their van and rob the tools they need to go out and earn a living and pay tax, which benefits everybody.
Well, well, I think, to be fair, that little statement wraps everything up quite nicely, actually. That was
I
Jerry
think that's
Springer-esque. That was like Jerry Springer. You literally took it, you put your final thought, you encapsulated every single issue, wrapped it into a nice parcel, delivered it, threw it straight in the basket, swoosh, three-pointer, smashed it. Yes, and there you go. So I think so remember, anyone who's watching this video, I still want to know that is the question for today. Maybe we should do a weekly question to the listeners. The one thing I want to know is, from all the people that are listening, we had a little disagreement about the best way to stop reoffending in this country. So to put it in its simplest terms, to oversimplify the question, let's ask the listener, what do you think the best way would be to stop reoffending in this country and lower crime? Is it A, for more draconian punishments and longer sentences, or is it to try harder to rehabilitate people and release them into society a different person? What do you think? Let us know.
Cool.
And I bet I win, because I've got my finger on the pulse of the nation.
Well, I think you might
I am
win,
the
but I
working
think
man.
that's
you're the
only a
working
part.
woman.
Reoffending rates is only part of my. Is
The question's
rehabilitation is
been
only
asked.
part of my
The
argument.
part of it. Yeah, but I did say we're oversimplifying it. I don't want to misrepresent my sister because she'll kick off. She's the legal eagle. But that's her nickname, the legal eagle. Yeah, so that's the question. Answer in the comment section. Either punishment, I want you to say punishment, or rehabilitation. Not a combination of
Cool.
both. One or the other.
Cool. If you enjoyed watching today's episode and want to see and hear more from us weekly, please don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also find us on all major social media platforms. My name's Justine. Goodbye, and thanks for watching The T Word.